Hi, you're listening to Wimbledon, hosted by me, Nick Ray. Today's guest is Ming Chen, and Ming Chen is the first person I met who was from EF, the company I worked for 14 years. She's an absolute energy bomb, a tour de force within EF, awesome woman, very, very smart, very, very driven, and she's a great inspiration to me, had a lot of impact on my career, so I'm very grateful to her. And I hope you enjoy the conversation. She has some particularly interesting things to say about trade-offs within career and things. So I think you'll enjoy that. Just a quick note, at the beginning of the conversation, her microphone is a bit... And so I called her out on it, and I think about 30 seconds in, we moved that. So if the start of the conversation annoys you, please don't let it. We fixed that problem, and I think it's great. I hope it's great audio from then on, and I hope you enjoy the conversation. Please listen at the end as well for a quick update. We're going to be bringing out some new content for you. I say we because I've got a co-host guest I'm going to do some live streaming with. But anyway, enough of that for now. I'll leave you with that little teaser and pass you on to Ming Chen. All right, thanks a lot, everyone. Okay, hi, I'm with Ming Chen here. Ming is kind of famous on this podcast. I don't think she knows that, but she's come up a few times as one of the key people for my life with EF, which was my previous life where I worked for 14 years. She was the very first person I met from EF in person, and yeah, she's really a huge there's a huge amount of responsibility on her shoulders for me going along that amazing path with EF. So firstly, thank you very much, Ming, and secondly, I'm gonna just get her to introduce herself. So Ming, if I can throw it over to you, and just a bit about where you're from, where you grew up, how you got to where you are now.
Sure. Thanks, Nick. I'm glad that I met you way back when you were a student studying at INSEAD Business School in Singapore. And I was, I think, one of your first interviewers.
Yes.
I'm glad that you joined us for a little while, but I'm at EF. I'm still at EF, where Nick, you used to work. EF Education First, which is the world's largest privately held international education company. I think you've had a number of other EF guests. My title is EF's Chief Culture Officer, which is really an honorific. EF is about 50,000 staff, teachers, and part-time tour directors. So it is, a nod towards the fact that we're family owned and family run. And that, as we grow very quickly with a global footprint and a presence in more than 100 countries, we need to look after the culture or the secret sauce that made EF EF. Where I'm from, I grew up in New Jersey. I was born in New York City. I'm an identical twin, and I have two brothers who grew up 26 miles outside of Manhattan. I went to school in Boston and then joined EF, which has the North American headquarters in Boston as well. And then I moved out to Hong Kong. So I've only really lived in three places. I think, Nick, you said you lived in how many?
Oh, a lot. I've lived in 10 countries now, but I've moved country 22 times. So.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I'm, I've lived only in three cities. Melbourne, New Jersey, which is not even a city, it's a suburb, Hong Kong, and Boston.
Very cool. Very cool. Ming, I'm going to do something weird. If you can move the mic slightly down, because we're getting a sound
okay.
when you're talking. Yeah, just because okay. I know that drives some people crazy. So, and so what about your career and where all the things you've done? I know there's a lot, and probably people will have seen in the description some of the things, but if you could just talk me through a little bit about your career and what you've done. Both in EF and out of EF.
Okay. Before I joined EF, I actually worked in media and television. I moved out to Hong Kong right after college in 1992. Hong Kong was a very different place, but super fun. And Star TV was setting up a satellite television company, and Turner Broadcasting was setting up TNT and Cartoon Network. My twin sister and I worked in marketing, production, and my twin sister and I were hired to be presenters of the ill-fated children's channel, which is where I met Little Legs, who maybe you've had on this show.
Angela, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So Yes, Angela. And then so I was in television for 4 years, doing everything from helping acquire the Golden Harvest Film Library, which is where all of the Bruce Lee films are. And then again, having our own children's show, and not being an actress or considering myself anything of an actress. And then I went to business school. And then at business school, I came across, or EF came across me. Um, and they were recruiting MBAs at that point, to help the company expand and grow, because we basically moved from family owned and operated to more professional management to exponential growth. So
That's great. And I think it's important that we don't be too humble here, Ming, because it was Harvard Business School, which is the best in the world, right? So
well, you went to NSCAD, which is always number one. So.
Well, yeah, it's number one for me, but yeah, Harvard is pretty amazing school. And you've also written some books as well, and you've also done some things outside of work, which are pretty amazing, like your running. So why don't you tell us just a quick bit about those things?
Okay, well, my twin sister and I always like to have a creative project going on. And so together we've co-authored three children's books. One is called Sarsaparil's New Shoes, another's Ling Ling Looked in the Mirror, and the latest one that came out this spring is called Escape, One Day We Had to Run. And the second thing that I do with my free time is I'm a compulsive runner. So I've done a lot of marathons.
Do you know how many?
I think I'm doing one in 3 weeks in Hong Kong, and I think that will be 72 or 73. I need to check my spreadsheet. I have a spreadsheet.
Okay, so then let's move over a bit towards talking about winning. So I think we were having a brief chat before the call, and you mentioned you had some feelings around the word win and things. So if you can describe your philosophy around winning and a bit about what it means to you.
Right. Well, I was originally saying that winning is a little bit of a trigger word for many people, because I think that it's binary, right? You are either a winner or a loser. And I think in the world, or at least in my life, I don't think of the world like that. And if you look at the sports that I've chosen, running is not a winning, like there's not a clear winner in a marathon. Oh, yes, it's the fastest person, but everybody who competes, I know that the Boston and New York marathons have, tens of thousands of people who compete, all of them have their own finish line. So again, win, I guess, is how you're saying you'd like to describe it as, what game are you in? And I guess I'm in the game where there are multiple finish lines and multiple winners.
I love that. Multiple finish lines is excellent. It's exactly right. As I said to you, that the sort of the idea behind the word win, actually within win building and things, is to trigger a little bit, because I think it is about your own wins, and that's what I mean. Like, it's either your own wins on a personal level, or if you're a business, your business wins. But it doesn't mean that you necessarily need to be the number one in every single field that's in the business or whatever. Okay, great. And you had some thoughts in particular on trade-offs. You said you were interested to talk about trade-offs and kind of how you fit them within sort of constructing your achievements, and how you like what they mean to you. So why don't you take me off of what about trade-offs for you is important, and how are some of the trade-offs you've made in your life factors for you?
Well, it really came up because, a lot of people, mainly young women who enter the workforce, and, I went to business school. I know a lot of my colleagues dropped out of the workforce because they had to make too many trade-offs to stay in the workforce. And it was a really, really useful way for me to judge, someone was talking about work-life balance. That's always a buzzword. And I remember thinking, well, actually at EF, there is no such thing as work-life balance, because we choose to be here. We work, and then we have a life, but we don't say you can't have a life while you're working. So I was saying to young women who I was talking to, who just graduated or who were thinking about their next career move, you need to see your life as not trying to achieve this, unheard of balance, but
Mm.
but really thinking about what are your trade-offs.
Mhm.
Trade-offs are when one thing increases, something else decreases. And I have 3 children. I'm married, and I worked at EF the entire time. My eldest, Emma, is 18 now. And I think that when you look at trade-offs, the currency of a trade-off is your time. So what am I doing with my time? My trade-off when I had children was, do I like my job and my company? Do I believe it enough in what I'm doing to make that trade-off of not being home? And I said, yes, the trade-off is I'm willing to trade off my time to be at work and not at home. So I think that, when you see the currency of being your time, it helps you think, there is no balance. It's more just trade-offs, and there are trade-offs in every decision that you make.
Mm. I love that. It's very interesting to think about as well, especially, well, right now I'm in that zone, as you know, where I've got little people, very little people, who take up pretty much every second of my outside of work time. But so I'm interested to know, like, how did you think that through when you were, a new mum, and relatively new, I guess, to EF? Or no, hang on, how long have you been in EF now? It's
I've been here for a long time. So
uh,
20, I guess I had Emma after I'd worked at EF for maybe 4 years.
yeah,
No, I got
okay.
married after 4 years, so maybe 5 years.
Okay, so
Um,
how did you
and
find that balance at that time? Because I'm sure, as I recognize your point, and especially for young women, but I think a lot of men now as well are taking up more of the sort of parenting roles, and it's becoming gradually a little more fair and equal in that sense.
right.
How do you balance that? How did you make those decisions and find that balance?
I think I have to caveat that I live in a city like you did,
Yeah,
where very good help is available for an
yeah,
affordable price.
yeah.
But caveating that, I think that, lots of times you're given a choice of, oh, should I join this firm? Should I do this venture? Or do I strike it out on my own? And when I talk to people who are making those decisions, I'm like, well, your life changes over time. Everything happens to you. I joined EF as a single person. You joined right after business school. Your life was very different then. And then that's when I said, you have to establish yourself, and really recognize what you're willing to give up in order to what you're willing to give up, or
Mm,
what you're willing to, again, trade.
mm.
um, and it's different for everybody. For
Yeah,
instance, I'll give you a very simple example. Like, people are like, oh my God, you run? How do you have time to run? I said, well, I trade off my sleep in order to run.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, and I think there's a big movement now about people getting up very early in the morning to go and work out or to go and run and things. I've been trying that myself, but it's it's a fine balance to find. It's that you've got to find the right time in the morning that doesn't completely break you. So, but I think it's interesting when you say what you're willing to trade off. So when you talk about currency and time, I love that. I think trade what you're willing to trade off, but also what are the priorities for you, right? What is it? Because obviously if you want to prioritize your career and you're gaining certain status within a career or certain opportunities, then your willingness to trade off is going to be greater. Can you talk a little bit about motivations and maybe ambition or sort of hunger in that sense?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Um, so ambition and hunger, I guess we would call it drive.
Yeah.
I think that everyone's built with their own engine, and the ability of them to drive. Like, I think I have a lot of mental endurance, which is how I have done 73 marathons. So I think that your ambition or drive comes from different places. To run a marathon is probably pretty mental, more than physical, in the way that I sort of approach it. So, success breeds success. I don't know whether Adam Grant had a wonderful quote. I'm totally going to get it wrong, but he said that, too much time at work versus too little time at work, the perfect balance is having time affluence, right?
Mm,
Not having too much work, not having too little work, but really having, feeling like you have enough time for a lot of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. It's I think it's really interesting. This episode has probably become more around time, because time is such an important factor. And as you said, with the currency, it is, you get a certain amount of time. There's no way of
Yes.
sort of changing that. You have to section out your days and section out your priorities and decide what it is that's worth more in your time. Interestingly, we're going to try and keep this podcast short as well, which is Ming's using her time very valuably here. So
I'm sparing the listener for an hour.
I think they've got a lot. I think there'll be a lot to learn from this. So it just to sort of think about then also around traits and qualities that you've seen. I mean, I know that you've seen a lot of very talented people come through EF, and there's still a lot of very talented people within EF. And also obviously in your previous work life. What are the things that you think are particularly relevant or noticeable to you that would indicate somebody likely to be someone who is achieving something incredible or something worthwhile? What are the traits and qualities that you see?
Well, I know that what I've come to enormously respect is creative intelligence. So creative intelligence can come from, design work. It can come from approaching a problem differently, but I think creative intelligence is something that is rare, and that it's wonderful to see. Expressions of it might be, things that you make or do, but it's also how you approach problems.
Okay, and how would you say someone can recognize creative intelligence beyond just sort of seeing a nice piece of art or something like that, or seeing a good solution to a problem? Consistency, well, I guess is got to be something there as well. How would you
let's put it this way. I had spent my whole education going to presumably one of the top schools, right? Harvard. Yeah. And you get out and you're like, okay, those people are like academic smart. When you get to the real world, that is not what's going to help you in life, and that's why I'm like the type of, when I worked in television, I realized, oh, these people are so basically creative. Yeah. This is where their smarts come from, and this is why we have amazing shows, or it makes life richer. Yeah, I think there are a lot of people who can do, they say that technology will replace things like, I don't mean to slam lawyers or accountants, but that kind of work. Yeah. And that I think creative intelligence is the thing that's going to get you to the future.
I think you're probably right. I mean, I've talked quite a lot about, as you know, I'm a bit of a nerd and I love future stuff. I've talked quite a bit about the idea that I think, as like you say, lawyers, for example, a lot of the work that they do will become automized, and there'll be robots or whatever clever AI that's doing that for them. However, I think one of the key skills that young people should be focused on is interacting with other human beings and understanding how those interactions work, like change the world around them, change the environment, the dynamic around them. Because human connection, that is where we have the ability to be creative, to be innovative, and come up with new solutions to problems, to new ways in which we can experience life better and enhance things.
Although if you think about it, the people with really creative intelligence were basically misanthropes, right? I mean,
yeah, exactly. Exactly. But I think those skills are becoming more and more sort of they're becoming more and more relevant as we develop and enhance life, and the technology becomes more and more ubiquitous, I suppose, everywhere. And but at the same time, a lot of young people are not focused on those skills, and those skills are actually, I would argue, possibly declining as people get more addicted to their mobile phones and their technology. They become more insular. The social interaction isn't as it's being channeled through devices and channeled through a medium that perhaps they wouldn't normally have felt is right. So any advice for someone who may be creatively intelligent but early in life or earlier and not yet had a chance to sort of fulfill that and develop that intelligence? Any advice for those sort of people?
Um, I love this quote of looking for what problem you're going to try to solve, right? When you enter a new job or workplace, you're usually given tasks that you need to do. But if you can help solve, or, people call it problem solving, you could also call it, reading the future that gets you 2 steps ahead, then a creatively intelligent person will recognize it. Um, and Albert Einstein once said, or we attribute it to Albert Einstein, but that if you spend, if you have 1 hour and you spend 59 minutes thinking about the problem and what problem you're trying to solve, and 1 minute coming up with the solution, that's how problems get solved.
Yeah. So, I actually have a joke. Well, I don't, as I mentioned, I haven't got an editor for my book yet, but my very first line of the book is a quote from Albert Einstein, but then I quickly caveat it with, there's a lot of quotes from Albert Einstein, but no one knows if he actually ever said it.
Yeah, exactly. That might not have been actually.
I'm glad you caveated it as well, but no, I don't know either. But even when you search online, it's like, this is definitely Albert Einstein. You look a little deeper. It's like, actually, is it? Whereas everyone
that could be the case for this one.
Everyone's just accepted it is. Listen, Ming, I am going to stick to your request and keep this as short and sweet as possible. I have had a real blast talking to you. So thank you so much for taking the time to come on the podcast. It's amazing to have you here and to finally put a face and a voice to the name that's come up a few times. You really did have a massive impact on my life. So, and as I've said, maybe you haven't heard me say it, but you were like a ball of energy in that interview room. And I remember being quite nervous because obviously, you're going for a job interview and it's a big deal and you want to present yourself best. And I remember it all very clearly. And I walked in the room, and just from the moment I met you, it was like this energy bomb. And I said to myself, if anyone else in EF is like this, I want to work with these people. So you really were awesome. Nice. And I wish you the very best with your next marathon, your 73rd or 74th, whatever the Excel says. and all the best with your future as well. So I'll put a link to the books in the description of this, so that people can click and go and check out Ming's books. Is there anything else you'd like to promote or to push forward, or any last words of advice that you've got or thoughts?
No, I'd like to say hello to your wife, your beautiful wife, and your 2 kids.
Okay, perfect. Well, they're not here.
And please have some good Norwegian cheese for me.
Okay, yes. Well, I will have that. Not the Brunos, though. That's horrible. That's not, in my opinion, that's not good cheese, but there are some good ones. Okay, well, thank you so much, Ming, and all the best.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed that episode. As I said at the beginning, I gave you a little teaser. We're going to do some LinkedIn live streaming, we being me and a co-host of mine, a friend of mine who's already been on the podcast, and we're going to bring in other guests as well. I can only give you that at the moment, but we're going to try and make it a regular weekly live podcast, live stream conversation type of thing. We're having a couple of practice runs just to make sure we get it right for you guys. But yeah, I'd love you to join me along on that process. And if any of you are interested in being on the podcast, if you want to bring your story out to the public, then I would love to share that. I'd love to have those conversations about your thoughts on winning, your thoughts on building and constructing achievements and dreams. Finally, those of you who haven't yet done so, please do subscribe on YouTube. It really helps me out. So go to YouTube channel and subscribe to my channel, and also subscribe to this podcast on whatever channels you're listening to it through. All right. Thanks a lot, everyone. See you next week.